Let's go back to Reham Khan on that note. Reham, lots to digest in that 50-second statement from your former husband. He talks about the Indian media, the Indian Prime Minister, the Pakistani army, the former Pakistani Prime Minister, his so-called relationship with India and the Indian media. I'm trying to figure out what exactly was the big sentiment or statement over here that he was trying to drive home.
Well, I mean, listening to this, I don't know what is, I'm cringing. You know, if ever in a hole, just dig deeper. I don't know why he feels that he has to be on this self-destructive path. And why does he feel the need to say those things? I could just say that it's probably frustration, but I know for a fact that it's whatever he's told to say. And you know, it's not... I think the problem is that at this time we need strong leadership, and if you have someone who appears to be spineless and who appears to be fed bits of info and then just regurgitates that, it's just very embarrassing. It's very embarrassing to say that. Of course, he owes Indian media and Indian governments and India as well as you know, all his fans a lot of why he is a celebrity, and I think one shouldn't forget that. But also, I don't think that the Indian media or the Indian fans have forgotten, as of course we haven't forgotten in Pakistan, how anti-establishment he can be when he wants to be. So this is just embarrassing, and this is not something which is seen as a reliable reliable ally. I don't think that the establishment sees him as reliable either. So I don't think that that they've just probably, because there is not a lot of choice. Bilawal perhaps is too new in the political arena, and Zardari, of course, did not want to step aside. This could have been possibly another option. This could have been another option for them. But for Imran to say this and to say it today, it just seems like he is desperately trying to please those who he thinks can put him in power. And that's what it sounds like. Everyone knows that's what it sounds like. And he really needs to be guided by more sincere people, where he should not be making these mistakes. Clearly, I mean, if it's not all the things that we've seen all day today, you really don't need a critic. You really do not need anyone to harm Imran. Imran is enough. He's on a path of self-harm.
Sure.
And I think nobody is sincere enough, or maybe even competent enough, to guide him. I mean, the sort of things that we've seen all morning, who is to blame? Of course, the man himself is to blame, but surely there should be a team of advisors maybe guiding him, maybe even guiding him to go behind a screen to vote.
I was going to ask you about that. That's the perfect segue. Let's see if our team can pull up those visuals for us. But you did allude to this in your book as well, Reham, the fact that, you know, Imran Khan tends to get little bits of information, which, as you call it, he regurgitates without processing completely. And I'm wondering, you know, when it comes to even this decision to cast his vote in front of television cameras, was this once again a representation or demonstration of what he's always really been applauded for, and that is his showmanship, whether it's on the cricket field or even when he addresses the media or his rallies?
Well, you see, I've always said this, and I said this when I made that fatal mistake, shall we say, and I used to say this to his party members at the time also, that here you have someone, okay, fine, you have, you know, we have US presidents who have good teeth, tall, good-looking men, and they know how to walk nicely, they pick up babies, that's fine. But usually there's a team guiding them, and they listen to the team. So if somebody says to you, don't wear a purple tie, wear a black one, you're meant to listen to them. The problem with Imran is he listens to all the wrong people. So I don't think that he's listened to anyone sincere in his life, and there are not a lot of sincere people around him. So one of the things, and I've written this in the book as well, is I was watching a speech of his, and he's lambasting the opposition, well, not the opposition, the incumbent government at the time, and he's saying, you know, they're so blatant with their rigging. They appointed 43 presiding officers in this constituency, and I listened in horror, because whoever had read the article in the news, of course, because I know for a fact Imran doesn't read newspapers, so whoever had read the article had read it incorrectly, and so I texted him and I said, for God's sake, it's not them who appointed these presiding officers, it was your man who appointed these. So I mean, that's the sort of, you know, bits and pieces of information he gets fed, and then he just regurgitates it. Another incident that I tell you in the book is where he comes into the room and he's puzzled why the sedative is not working. And of course, I cleaned the drawers away and flushed all the offending sedatives and other stuff as well. And I asked him, I said, what did you take? And he said, well, I took this tablet from the drawer. And I said, well, there are no sedatives there because I've cleared the drawers. And I found out that he'd taken an Imodium pill. and so that's, and I, you know, this is the sort of thing that he does. And so he felt a hysterics there. And I said, well, do you not read before you take these things? And he could have taken anything. And that's exactly what's happened here. He's surrounded by buffoons who are cheering him on while he's done something very illegal. The ironic thing is we're going to have a PM hopeful, and if they still want to put him in a Sherwani, then I think we'll have the PM behind bars, and of course the former Prime Minister also behind bars. So maybe they can just have a cup of tea together.
Let's see if that happens. But I mean, let's talk a little bit more about his stand on certain issues. In the interview that we ran on WION over the weekend, of course, he touched upon things like the economy and trade ties with India. But I want to ask you about even his stand on things like religion, the blasphemy law, for instance, the fact that he voted against the Hudud ordinances in the past. For somebody who has always been deemed as a rather liberal, westernized human being, he does have a very hawkish stand when it comes to issues that perhaps resonate with a large group of people who are very religious in the country. Am I right in reading that sentiment, that it is a position of convenience when it comes to these kinds of touchy issues?
Absolutely, and Aisha, you're being very polite by calling it convenience. I would call it hypocrisy, and this is across the board. This is not only true for Imran. Of course, Imran has had a very colourful and very, like you said, showmanship. So he's never made an effort to hide these relations. So we have friends in India. We have, of course, affiliations of a romantic nature also. But, he still has some very close friends in India. And I know for a fact that he's on the phone with them a couple of times a day. And he's very keen to meet up with them in Dubai and in London. And that, of course, is, so it's very convenient, as you put it. I would say hypocritical to be very liberal in your personal life, but not to choose those liberal views for our janta, for our awam, and that is not right. Why do you have a fascist approach or a radical approach for other people? So I mean, if Islam was his way of life, and I've never seen him get up for the morning prayer in a whole year, I do not understand why you could be that hypocritical that for other people you cannot stand up and speak up and speak out against Hudud ordinance because it's some other woman or some other people's children who are affected. Similarly with Article with 295C, he doesn't even know that it's not part of the Constitution and it's part of the Pakistan Penal Code. And to use the blasphemy card as a desperate measure just to get in power, and then to be to appear on Indian TV and talk about vulnerable communities and minorities. How can you stand with minorities when you're actually fanning the flames of hate politics and actually not doing anything constructive or concrete on the ground, neither in the province of Khyber Pakhtunkhwa or now in the federation or in your general politics, to protect minorities? There are people who have burnt down mosques. Those people have actually are PTI presidents. Has Imran condemned any of these attacks by party people? Has he thrown them out of the party? So I think this is unforgivable. It's unforgivable to have these double standards where you live a life of a liberal and then when it suits you, you call liberal the scum of the earth, but you sit with them, you party with them, and then you go on to these forums using the blasphemy card. And who is going to suffer? Those who are the most vulnerable in our society, those who are labeled minorities, and the blasphemy card is used against people when there's a personal vendetta. Mainly women in the Punjab and particularly in South Punjab, and that is something that really is completely unforgivable.
All right. Other than the fact, Reham, that there's a lot of black hair on people's heads in those visuals, a lot has changed beyond that as well. These people aren't friends anymore. There is no pat on the back from one to the other. In fact, one is behind bars thanks to a very concerted campaign that Imran Khan carried out against Nawaz Sharif. So it just goes to show that things change in cricket and things definitely change in politics.
Well, conspicuously, Aisha, you'll notice that there are more black hair now on Imran's head than Prime Minister, the former Prime Minister Nawaz Sharif, and that doesn't go amiss with when I watch this clip. But of course, maybe that has to do with maturity as well. And I think here the issue is Pervez Musharraf also has been on record, and he said that he did offer actually more than just membership. He actually offered a place on the cabinet, but he thought that it would be the best place for Imran would be in like the sports category, a sports minister, which I suppose makes sense. The problem with Imran has been what Hina Rabbani Kar said at the top of the program, that this air of self-entitlement where he thinks that he deserves the crown, where he's been planning and dreaming of becoming the Prime Minister for the last 22 years, but not actually doing enough on the ground to deserve it. So I think the problem back then also was that Imran has been a hero. Like I said, he really thinks that he's God. And I don't think that he just wanted to be a member. I think all he wants to be is to be the king. He wants to be the Prime Minister. And coming back a full circle to what I said earlier, this will be the problem when we talk about coalition, because Imran will not be happy with the coalition arrangement where any other member of his party or anyone else who is affiliated to him is given the prized position. I do not think that Imran was ready to compromise back then, 20 years ago, when he wasn't even an active member of, in politics. And right now, I think he thinks it's his time. But then, of course, he's thought that it's his time for a very, very long time.
And the other question I then have for you, Reham, is that if he is somebody who is, very certain about where he sees himself in a power arrangement, wouldn't he be the worst person possible for the establishment to deal with? I mean, he doesn't exactly come across as somebody who's very pliable, and that has been one commentary that has, sort of generated a bit of traction over the last couple of days, that the Pakistani army isn't looking at Imran Khan as their blue-eyed boy, whereas somebody like a Shehbaz Sharif would perhaps be a more pliant person in power.
Absolutely, and I think I've held that view for a very long time. But you see, if it comes to me, of course, it would not be perhaps seen as completely unbiased. But I've had that view for a very long time. And I've had that view because I know how the media works and how things are fed to the media. So I felt for a very long time there was actually just a cover. And when I looked at the I think I mentioned on yesterday's program as well that I'm pretty sure that Imran is going to lose the Lahore seat. Now, this is very crucial if you think in terms of if they are really thinking of, when we talk about engineering in politics and we talk about, an engineered result, if we were to look at it closely, then the fact that Imran is losing in his Karachi seat as well has a lot, gives a little bit of a hint of what the establishment actually thinks about him. I mean, they could give him all 4 seats where he's contesting from, but they're giving him a tough battle in Islamabad in NA 53, and of course he's lost the Lahore seat and the Karachi seat. I think it's pretty much confirmed that he is set to lose that. That gives you a little bit of a hint that they do not want to give him the whole cake. Now, I'm not suggesting for a minute that PTI is not the best option for them. But Shehbaz Sharif has proved that he can be very, very pliant. And I think perhaps quite annoyingly for some, I think a lot of us would have wanted a lot more leadership and a lot more perhaps a lot more vocal stance from Shehbaz Sharif. But he has always had and enjoyed a very good repute with not only our business communities overseas, but what we found out recently that backdoor diplomacy with other countries is actually pretty good. Shehbaz Sharif has done a really good deal with some people, as it seems, because he's popular with the Chinese. He seems to get on very well with Erdogan and Turkey. We haven't really seen much of his friendliness towards India, and there might be some, but I think he's been very careful about it, unlike his older brother. But we have seen a very favoured position by Saudis, and so I think that he enjoys a position where he's liked by many who wish to invest in Pakistan and who can be very good partners for Pakistan's future prosperity. Imran doesn't seem to enjoy that. Right. He does not enjoy Saudi support. He does not enjoy a very good relationship with Turkey, and certainly he's not making a lot of waves with, or at least positive ones, with India.
Right. We've talked quite a bit about the main players, specifically about Imran Khan. So in closing, Reham, if I can ask you, if you could define for us what you feel has been sort of the definitive moment of these elections from today, of course, and of course in the run-up. It's been a short but very acrimonious campaigning season that we've seen. The one moment that stands out for you and how you see it impacting the results?
I think that there have been several moments that have sort of lifted my spirits, and for elections that we weren't really too keen on even following, because there was this sort of sense of I'm not a pessimist, but there was this sense of a lot of people were feeling like these are not really real elections and they're sham elections and there will be a lot of rigging. I think there have been some very uplifting moments. One of the best moments, as I said, was of course that areas 5 kilometers from the Pakistan-Afghan border, to see these women come out and vote. That's an iconic image. That's something that I feel I think emotionally attached to, because this is an area that I've worked in, and so I've always believed in these people. I know that they're not backward. I know that they're not conservative. The burqa is not really indicative of any Islamist or any backward attitude. These myths need to be broken. It's part of our culture. My grandmother wore it, and it's perfectly fine. And I don't think that it is necessarily seen in the places that I visit and I come from. It's not really something that limits women. What limits women is the right to vote, or the right of vote taken away from them, or the decisions that are taken away from them. So it's not really their cultural heritage or how they choose to dress up. That was an uplifting moment. There was a particularly nice video where I saw this elderly woman stand in the heat, and I think this was from the Punjab, and she's almost hunched forward, and she's going about the business of, not worried about any political sloganeering, but she's going about the business of voting and coming out. And I think this is the spirit of Pakistanis that I love, and this is what raises my hope. This is what gives me optimism. This is the beauty of the fact that humanity and human values will perhaps always win in the face of a lot of maybe engineering, in the face of a lot of money being invested to divide us, in the face of all these lobbies working to crush sensibilities. It is the sensibilities of people and the awam at large, these 220-odd million people. That is what is going to be really the defining moment for us in our history, that today, if there is going to be a winner, it's going to be the people. It's not going to be the big guns for me. I don't really see much difference in any one of them, but I do believe in the people, and I think the power of the people and what they do with their vote today, and what the outcome is, if it's not tampered with, is going to be what is going to dictate how Pakistan is going to appear in the next few years. So fingers crossed.
Well, more power to that thought. We'll leave it at that. Reham, thank you very much for joining us this evening with your perspective on what's been a historic day for Pakistan.